Throughout the years, I've played many games and genres, and very few take my attention and keep it there for a long time. But from those few, there is one called Rimworld. Hello and welcome, fellow virgins. It is I, Super Virgin here, and today I'd like to talk about why Rimworld is so awesome. Now let me start off by saying what Rimworld really is. Basically, it's a sort of sci-fi colony sim type of game where there's this storyteller, they call it, which is some sort of special AI that tells the game what events to throw at you, both positive and negative, and you have to adapt to what happens around you, to what happens in those events, and you have to overcome those hurdles. So you started up the game, right? You're fresh, new game, you decide to just get into this, and then all these fucking menus get thrown at you, like you barely know what's going on. What characters are you going to pick? What world do you want? And where in this world do you want to spawn? What stats are the characters you want to pick? And let's not forget, what storyteller do you want? Always pick Randy. That's a major selling point for Rimworld. It's a lot like, you know, the story is in your hands. You have the choices presented here to you. But when you don't know what this game is about and you barely have any information when you set it up, yeah, of course you're going to be a bit weirded out, or you don't really know what exactly is going on. Rimworld gives you control over pretty much everything except, of course, the events that happen, but making you choose which storyteller there is, of course, then also alters what events could happen or how all of this actually happens, like in what order and whatnot, and getting Randy randomed. And then of course there's this like giant amount of replayability that comes with that, because you have so many different choices, especially with mods and DLC, which we'll come back to later, but there's a lot of different choices here. Now let's talk gameplay. Rimworld has a lot of different mechanics, honestly a bit too many to talk about. They're really like deep and strategic, and you have to really think about every little step you have. Some are really important, some are less important. Basically, like, to say it in like very small context, you just have to manage your colony, manage your resources, and manage your colonists' moods. Those are the three main things you have to do. And then of course those external threats I talked about also come with that, and you have to actually take care of those. But there's surgery, there is a whole way of saying what work they have to do, there's like a whole way to assign what clothes people can wear. There's so many different systems that go on during this entire game that most of the time you won't even look at, but it's definitely cool and definitely can tailor your experience. Because of all of these different mechanics, it's really easy to just get lost in them, right? Barely understand what is going on. And the problem with Rimworld then is, the one negative thing that I can really say about it is its simplistic UI. It barely helps you anything. You start up the game and you just have a bar on the bottom of your screen with different tabs that just have a name like medical or work or architect or whatever, and you barely know what the hell's going on, and you have to find this out for yourself. There is of course a small little tutorial section and whatnot, but from my experience back in the day, that doesn't really help you all too much to survive in the game. The truth is, Rimworld does have quite a high skill ceiling. With that I mean, like, you're going to experience a lot of different things and you're going to learn from those, but you're not always going to be prepared the first time you meet those things. I currently am discovering new things sometimes, not all of the times of course, but every so often I do find something new in this game, and I think to myself, wow, I didn't know that for the longest time. But at the same time, that really makes the game so much more fun to play, because I mean, let's be honest here, constantly discovering new things, even after the hundreds of hours I've put in this game, fucking amazing. Now the truth is, like I said, you're going to have to restart. You're going to have to restart the game and do new playthroughs and whatnot. You're going to lose colonists, and yes, I said lose. I didn't say they were going to be unalived. And 9 times out of 10, you are going to learn from that. There are lessons to be learned with the game, something that the game doesn't tell you. And sometimes there are problems that come with this, which I will be talking about later with the issues in the game. But honestly, for the most part, you're just gonna have to learn, and then next time you play, you'll remember, oh, I have to do this. But what are these events, right? I talked about events a couple of times now. I've talked about positive events. I've talked about negative events. They're also like in the middle, like just random events that don't really have a certain outcome that needs to happen. It's honestly, it has a wide range of things that it can be. You could randomly have a flock of 10 like geese randomly joining your colony because they self-tamed, or you could just have a flash storm, which is basically just, oh, there's just a bunch of lightning dropping down on the ground the entire time. And well, when you have a map that is pure forest, the entire map is going to burn down, including your own house. These events are of course tied to this storyteller. There are 3 different storytellers out there in the base game. We have Cassandra, Phoebe, and Randy. Cassandra just increases the difficulty of her events as time passes, so she goes from easy to just harder and harder and harder and just keeps going. Phoebe gives you time in between difficult events, so she just gives you a bunch of difficult events and then just a bunch of easy ones and just switches in between. Randy's last name is random, so I mean, I'll let you guess what he does. On top of this, you have so much choice what to do with the world around you, and there is a lot of world around you, right? In the beginning, you choose a spot where you spawn or where you start your colony, and then after that, there's this giant world just shaped around it with different, like you have like Iceland, you have deserts, you have all these different factions that go around. Hell, you could have a cannibalist nudist tribe close to your base randomly raiding you from time to time. Now you can trade with these factions, right, and become friends, and you can, you know, do all these different things that say like, okay, here, give me this, I'll give you that sort of trade, but then over a orbital trade beacon, so without actually having to see them in real life. You could ask them to help you during a difficult time, so when you get raided a bunch of times, you can actually have people from their tribe or their faction help you and fight for you, or do it the other way around. But you could just go the completely different direction and you could just start killing everyone and everything. Very often, certain people will come to your colony and they will have things to trade, or they're just going to be visiting, or they're going to be hunting in your area, stuff like that. And you can choose to just let them do that or trade with them, like I said, or you could just start killing all of them and just go all out on trying to just destroy every single one of their little colonists, just showing how inferior they are by destroying everything and taking what they have. It's definitely nice to have that choice. Of course, doing either one of these things, if you're going to be a good guy and help each other out, they're of course going to reward you with stuff. The other way around, they're going to of course try to seek revenge, and everyone's going to hate you because, you know, no one's going to trust you to be a friend of you. Honestly, the part where I love Rimworld so much for, and I think this is like necessary in a lot of different games, is just the game understands, like the devs understand when the game needs to be realistic, right? So your pawns, your characters that you have, your colonists, they have certain effects, certain statuses they have, like manipulation or consciousness or whatnot, and depending on what happens to them, like what conditions they get, for instance, maybe they get sick, maybe they lose a hand, maybe they get hurt, right? They get a few cuts and bruises and whatnot. Those statuses and whatnot all start to change. So for instance, one of them could smoke a smoke leaf joint, as they have in the game, and their consciousness would go down a while. One could lose a finger or two, and their manipulation, so what they do with their hands, is a bit less effective. And that is a very cool little detail that, although it isn't really shown that much in the graphics of the game, it really does affect the gameplay, and it's definitely something really, really interesting. You can also have this go the other way around. You can let your colonists get these implants, which will then of course make your colonists better in certain things like manipulation or walking, like moving speed or something like that, getting their prosthetic legs, but then like cyberly enhanced, stuff like that. It's really cool. I've yet to see it in any other game, especially like colony sim games. This is the first and only game I've ever seen this happening in, and it's so cool that this detail has been added, and then it's so in depth and has so many different things that can happen with it. But then, like, when it comes to the realistic side, there's another part, of course, to it. What you could have is that your pawn, like, they're blind bats, right? They're somehow professionals when it comes to what the game is telling you to their stats, but yet they keep missing a wild boar like 10 or 20 times before they finally hit one shot. And luckily, you do not eat ammo in this game. You do not need your colonists to create ammo. Their ammo is infinite, and that is just perfect. Of course, that it means for every colonist, so also for enemies, but still, that is a necessary thing when we're talking about missing 20 shots after one another, and it's infinite, but not just for guns. Pawns could just keep throwing grenades as if it's just infinite. Now, I could talk about every single one of these different mechanics that the game has and talk about how in depth that this all goes, but the real hero of all of this is the fact that they all have all these different systems that somehow interconnect, right? All these different systems, they connect so perfectly well together, they're blended in perfectly, and they all work perfectly with one another. I'll talk about this more when it comes to the DLC page, but honestly, wow, definitely something to be proud of from the dev team to create such an interesting game with lots of mechanics that actually work with each other. Now, the soundtrack is what I want to talk about next, which is nothing but just perfect when you listen to it. And this adds so much to the atmosphere while you're playing the games and while you're having this immersion. There will be times where your pawns are all sleeping or your pawns are all doing their jobs and you're just looking over them. Maybe you're looking from really far away, and there's this music that's playing during this time that really sets the tone of how this game works. You can sit back, hear them doing their work, like I don't know, hammering away on new art sculpture or mining away the ore that you found and said go mine that. It's really cool to have all these different sounds. Now, this soundtrack has been playing the entire video, by the way, so yes, this is royalty free. You could just use this whatsoever. I cannot edit the music, but I can just let it play in the background of a video like this, and it's definitely so cool when developers do this. It makes my job a hell of a lot easier, and honestly also makes it a lot nicer, because when you're watching a Rimworld video, you kind of want Rimworld music playing in the background. Ludion Studios, the guys behind the game, which are still pretty small of a studio, they actually care about their fans and they actually want to like listen to their fans, which is something that I absolutely adore. They want the best for the game, they want the best for their fans, and it really does show. This is a game made with love for people that enjoy this type of game, because of course it's not for everyone. Then there's of course like the different sounds in the game. Like I said before, you can have them working on an art sculpture, you can have them working on a wall or something. Like there's all different sounds. You can have them mining, you can hear creatures, you can hear them cook and whatnot, and these are pretty basic sounds, but they do the job right. They suffice for the most part with every single thing there, but a lot of the times what I do feel is a bit weird is like the gunshot sounds. Like I said, they shoot infinitely, so if you're playing on 3 times speed, so everything's going really fast, and you just hear bam 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 just 20 times from a bolt action rifle, and it's the same sound the entire time, it sounds a bit weird. They suffice, like I said, as a gunshot sound, but there would be better sounds. Definitely doesn't get you out of the immersion, but something that could use a bit of work. Rimworld recently got its 4th DLC. First it was Royalty, which as the name implies added royalty, but it also added a lot of different spells or sidecasts is what they call them, but it's basically spells or doing weird things like breathing fire or mind controlling or mind soothing someone. It's definitely really special and a very cool first edition as a DLC. Then we had Ideology, which of course added a bunch of religions, or you could make your own with a bunch of different choices, like do we like cannibalism, do we enjoy dead bodies, do we think we're superior, all that stuff. You could completely design it to however you want it. I have done that myself. I have a religion that I always use when I play Rimworld because I love it so much, and it adds this extra little bit of choice to it, right? A lot of times you could just want a bunch of cannibalists, but unless they actually have that trait, unless your colonists have the trait that they're a cannibalist, this wouldn't work. After this DLC was added, you could just say, oh well, it's a religion, so now I can make a whole tribe which are nudist cannibals. Third, there was biotech, which basically added a bunch of races, which also had certain abilities to them, but they also added genes, so you could extract genes from people, you could add them to people, you could make a lot of different changes to pawns. I don't really know how exactly that worked. That is the only DLC that I actually wasn't too excited to play. It was pretty cool. It wasn't really much for me. At the time, I wasn't really into Rimworld that much anymore, but definitely also a very cool addition. And now there's the last one, the fourth one, which is called Anomaly. It came out a little bit longer than a week ago, and in this one they've decided to just go a completely different direction. They have gone a horror direction, full with like supernatural creatures, supernatural events. When you look at it, I think you have these like flesh-eating monsters, you have ghouls, you have zombies, you have this random, like, you have trees that eat flesh, you have a dark fog that attacks you if you don't have a light source with you on a pond. It's really fucking crazy what they all added. And then the cool part about it is that they also added a way to like capture these creatures and study them and then create items or get all of this stuff from them. They added a new research tab, which is also a big part of the game. Didn't talk about that before, but research to unlock new things to do. They added that as well. There's a bunch of cool new additions to the game, extra events, even extra soundtracks, which is even better. It adds so much to the game. It's honestly really fun to have all these additions, and this one is another great one. I'll go over again how these systems work really perfectly, and the DLC doesn't change that. So you can play with pretty much any DLC. You could play with a combination of them. You could play with all four of them, which is honestly preferably, once you kind of know how the game works, is what I used to do, like all the DLC and then a bunch of mods, which I will be talking about. And it's really just working perfectly. Like, you understand where this DLC comes from, and from this point on, I am really excited to see what DLC comes next. Most of the time, there's been like a year or a year and a half between each DLC, so I'd say somewhere at the end of 2025, beginning of 2026, we'll probably see the 5th DLC for Rimworld coming out. Ludion Studios is probably already working their asses off trying to get this out, and I really do love the fact that they do this. Every DLC also comes with a big update on the game, adding stuff that just is a quality of life change overall to every little aspect when they realize, oh shit, this doesn't really work. Like, for instance, instead of having to clean up dirt from the floor and just having to choose each individual spot that your pawns have to clean up, you could just clean a room and they'll just take every little dirty spot on that room and clean that instead. That's a new addition that wasn't in the game a week ago. So that is definitely something that should have been changed, but I'm very glad they do put those changes in. The cherry on top of the cake are the mods. I mean, my god, there are so many different mods. This community is giant. You want more races? Done. You want more weapons? Done. You want vehicles? Done. You want your pawns to be able to beat each other into submission? Weird, but done. I think you understand what I'm trying to get here. There is so much to do, and so many different mods that can add to the storytelling and replayability of the game, as well as add a bunch of quality of life changes that you can adjust to however you want it to be. The community for this game is absolutely crazy, and they're already getting new mods all the time. There's a bunch of different mods since 1.5 came out, and there's also actually a few people that take older mods that are really beloved by the community and just push them to the newest version because the original mod creator is no longer creating mods, no longer updating. I don't know, they're gone, they're off the scene. I think there's a guy with about like a couple of hundreds of mods that he's constantly putting in 1.5, and it's definitely really cool to see this community thrive and still try to create fun content for each other and try to add this sort of make your own story and make your own game to it, which is definitely what makes this game so interesting. Now, before I go to the outro part of this video, I would like to talk about my personal experiences. I talked a lot about the lessons you have to learn. I think I have a couple of hundred of hours in it. Steam doesn't really portray it very well because I originally actually didn't buy the game. I pirated the game originally, played it probably about 100 hours, and then bought the game on Steam, and then I've put in hundreds of hours since then, bought all the DLC. I didn't buy the soundtrack yet, and I didn't buy my own name in game, which is also a cool little addition to help the devs out. But my personal experiences were invigorating and quite fun, except that I hated them at the time. So maybe if you're new to the game, these ones will help you. Starting off on my first colony, I didn't actually realize that you need a pawn with a pretty high plant skill. High means about 8. Why do you need this? Well, because you start off the game when you're doing the standard run with a bunch of medicine. And I thought, oh, well, you could make medicine somewhere, right? Well, yes, but you have to research that first. Instead, what you do is you need someone planting something called a heal root. And back when I started playing, this was 2017 or something. I think 2016, 2017 when it first released. So I didn't know that my colonists got hurt. They all died. End of that one. Then another one that I've been struggling with quite a lot throughout multiple playthroughs was the fact that you need steel and components for a lot of different electrical parts. And when your colonists are freezing or they're too hot, or they're crying because they don't have the food that they want or they can't use the tools that they want, yeah, you want electrical stuff to be there to help you out. So yeah, I didn't have components and steel and I just got annoyed and I turned off the game. And now currently I am doing a playthrough that is going pretty well overall. I've been doing all right, been getting a lot of colonists, definitely enjoying the game with the new DLC. Probably got a lot more to discover, but still. The most hated part that I have about this right now is the fact that, well, everybody's getting food poisoning. Everybody's throwing up. And I really do not enjoy the fact that that happens because everyone will throw up about every 5 minutes, which already makes everything dirty. And everyone's walking super, super slow. So yeah, definitely something that I'm going to have to work through. Overall, I think if you still haven't bought it, what are you doing? It's got 98% positive reviews on Steam, like overall with about, I think, what is it? Like almost 160,000 reviews since 2016, which is of course quite a long time, but still. The game is so fucking good and everyone agrees with this. Now, that's why I believe that Rimworld is so awesome, but what do you think? Did I miss anything, or do you just not like the game at all? Are you in that 2% negative reviews? Do you have any fun stories to share to the community or to me? Leave it down in the comments below and I'll definitely read it. I always do. And while you're down there, leave a like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. It helps me grow as a smaller channel. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a great day and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.